Some of the feedback I've received in my career, and I think that's helped me to be successful, is people go, well, Kevin, you really want to understand our business or my business. And it's because how am I going to create value if I don't know it?
Welcome to another episode of Higher Learning. I am your host, Oz Rashid. This isn't just a podcast. It's a front row seat to how elite leaders build iconic teams. The kind of leaders who spot potential that others may overlook, who build cultures people don't want to leave, who set the bar and then raise it. We're going to talk about work because it's evolving at a rapid pace in the future of work. And our guests are going to give insights around everything from leadership, management, AI, and developing the skills that actually matter. Whether you're a founder, hiring manager, or just obsessed with building the right way, this is your spot. First time here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, drop a rating, tell a friend who gets it. To our longtime listeners, we appreciate you. Now let's get into it. Today, we are joined by a very special guest. I'm thrilled to welcome Kevin Dooley. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Oz.
Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction because I want people to know who you are and what you've done. We've got some great experience here I want to share. So we're going to start here. Kevin is the Chief Human Resources Officer at IQVIA Labs. And Kevin brings 20 years of global HR leadership, from building a 3,000 person function at Deutsche Bank to senior roles at Colgate-Palmolive and PepsiCo, and has lived and led teams in London, Hong Kong, Singapore, and the US. He holds a BS in behavioral sciences and an MA in industrial organization psychology, grounding his work in data-driven, evidence-based people strategies. Today, we're going to dive into Kevin's playbook for embedding agility, accountability, and empathy into complex regulated environments, and uncover how he's using digital innovation and IO psychology to drive sustainable cultural change. Kevin, that's a mouthful, man. Did I do okay?
Not sure I got the right guy.
You know what? Can I get the real Kevin in, please?
That was great. It was very nice to hear that intro.
Yes. You know what? I like to start off with a little bit of here's our guest, here's what they say is important, and kind of set the table for you, man. So I am so excited to have you here. I'm down here in South Florida. You're up there in North Florida. You're in
Jacksonville.
That's right. So you lived in London, Hong Kong, and Singapore, and now Jacksonville. A little bit of a cultural change, I would imagine.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I grew up in New York City, so I'm very used to the hustle and bustle. I ended up down here through Deutsche Bank's Subways for Surfboards program. That was when they bought an asset in 2008. It was a mortgage IT company, and they found that it had a really strong infrastructure. And so they started sending off operations jobs to Jacksonville. It's middle office jobs. And then it just started flourishing because it was a great talent market. So I moved down here in 2014 to help them build it out.
I love that. Jacksonville, I have family up there. We've done work up there. There's some bigger companies than you realize. I think it's the biggest city in the continental United States in terms of landmass of the actual city, right? End to end.
Absolutely.
Yep. So there's some fun facts on Jacksonville. Really excited to have you here, man. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how that Jacksonville started to come out at you with the hunting and the barbecue that you like. But I want to start here. I want to talk work, career, and experience. There's so much great stuff to get into. You worked at so many great companies. Let's start here. How did you get into HR? Was this the plan all along? Was it a happy accident? And then I'm really interested to kind of learn about what motivated you to go that extra step and get that master's in the IO psychology degree.
Yeah, that's great. So I grew up in a blue collar family, and my father's a retired New York City firefighter. My mother's a social worker. And actually, my brother's a retired police officer. My sister was a police officer, just a whole family of law enforcement, fire department, first responders, stuff like that. So when I went to college, actually when I was growing up, my mother went back to college, and then she went to graduate school. She went to Columbia, and she didn't really have a babysitter. So she'd take me and my little sister to classes with her. So she used to go to Columbia University when we were really nervous, beautiful, massive, and just being in this kind of educational facility where it was just so much knowledge, and meeting the teachers and the students. And I really think it imprinted upon me around this kind of work ethic, because I saw my dad working really hard, still at service, and my mother just going for a goal and just being part of that, and her getting her master's degree. So that kind of I think imprinted upon me. So as I started my journey, and I was on a path to going to law enforcement or being a firefighter, admirable, love it. But I found this field in undergraduate called social sciences. And we used to do these experiments in the labs. And it was like behavioral science labs. And I was just fascinated with human behavior and how you can influence human behavior. And so when we started doing a couple of experiments, and then I found that there was this field of industrial organizational psychology. And it was like Professor Peter Pardine was the professor at the time at the NYIT. It was really influential, helping with my capstone project. And I just got hooked. And I found this program on Long Island at Hofstra University where they have a master's in industrial organizational psychology. I'm still on their academic advisory board. So I still participate and stay connected. So we meet like once a month on a Friday for like an hour. But I learned so much about the field. But getting to the master's degree, what I learned was at that time, if you really wanted to deep dive and specialize, you needed that higher degree for credibility, but also to kind of sharpen your skills and do the reps in the research. And how can you apply these different tools that you can learn as an IO practitioner?
Yeah, I mean, I got into HR. I was started in technology. I went into HR. I might have gone back and gotten my IO psychology degree, but then I started a company. And once you start a company, there's just a lot of things going on. It gets real tough. And I have a lot of close friends who have gotten that degree. They're some of the smartest and sharpest people I know. And one of the things that really stood out to me about the story that you just said, you remembered the professor, right? That really kind of, it sounds like, awakened this love for the social sciences in you. And it just goes back, like, it sounds so cliche, but like, teachers matter so much. I know, even if I look at, my kids are in elementary school, junior high, and now I have one going into high school. And the teacher being able to take the concepts and be able to engage you and get you excited about it, a lot of times can be the difference whether you're a kid that says, I hate math or I love math or I hate history or I love history. My experience with this is I had a teacher in college where I took a class called Race for the Presidency, and he was actually the campaign manager for Barry Goldwater. I went to the University of Arizona. Um, and I just found it so fascinating to learn about all these different presidential races that at the time I was really into this idea of getting into politics. Now, my career took me in a very different way, but I just find it so interesting that great teachers can really stimulate something out of students that just makes such a big impact and such a big difference.
Absolutely. And it's funny because it's like moments in time, right? Like where, because when I first started working with him, he's like this. He wasn't a very extroverted professor, but like I had this 6-hour statistic course once a week on Wednesdays with him, and he would just like chuck all along the board, and it was like these long forms. They back then it was like you take a smoke break, you go outside. I think he was like taking a break every 30 minutes. It was like the comments, like go outside. And I'm like, tough pretty. I'm not getting. He's like, just hang in there, Dooley. You'll get it. It's steps. It's just it snowballs, but you'll get it. And, I think he appreciated the fact that I would kind of go to him and say, I'm not getting it, but it's a 6-hour course. So I don't know how many people could deal with that, but it was rough, but I think it was through those reps, like working together, deep work, I was able to kind of, I guess, we built a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think your entire life might be different if not for that class, if not for that teacher. I think that's a
100%.
big deal. Okay, so let's talk about some of these big brands you've worked at, because these are HR organizations that are really, really well known for being really out in front in terms of people strategy and culture and organizational
Absolutely.
development. So
Yeah.
PepsiCo, Colgate-Palmolive, Deutsche Bank. I'm going to ask you this. Let's look at each company individually quickly. If you can tell me the biggest takeaway, biggest learning in each environment. Let's start with PepsiCo.
Yeah. So PepsiCo, I learned to be a business person first, not an HR person. It's a marketing company. I mean, one of the things that fascinated me about working there was it was distribution and marketing. And if you can understand that, and the other thing is, at the time, they also had the restaurant business. And so they had Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell.
Yep.
And those are the things. There was Yum, it was Tricon, and then it was Yum. I was there for the spinoff when they split it off with Tricon, which is pretty cool. But I just learned working in HR. Steve McGrory was the manager at the time. He was awesome. And I actually bumped into him when I worked at Deutsche Bank in a meeting. We had a vendor come in. He was the vendor. And it was a real shock to see him after that time. I was like, this guy's responsible for my career. And it was great to see him. He was like, oh my gosh, Kevin. And I learned so much from him, but it was about being a business person first, then an HR person.
Love that. Did he win the work?
To what?
Did he win the work? Came in as a vendor, you said, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he won the 100.
Feels like an advantage. All right, let's talk about Deutsche Bank then. What's your biggest takeaway from Deutsche Bank?
So Deutsche Bank, gosh, 19 years, I mean, it's hard to say there's one takeaway. I would say for me, I really matured there as a professional and I learned confidence. the big job for me was when I moved out to Asia and my boss was in New York. You're on your own. You're making decisions. You can't wait 12 hours. You have to make a decision and you have to hope you're right, or else you have to explain, what went wrong. And you don't want to spend your career explaining what went wrong. So, you got to place your bets. You got to develop your risk model. You know, it's banking. And similar to what I learned at Pepsi, banks run on risk. So if you understand risk and you can apply that to your mindset as an HR person, you're going to get along just fine there. But if you kind of take this standard where HR got to follow the process, got to follow the guidelines. And I know banking got in a lot of trouble, many times in financial crisis and all these, different things, but HR has to be the conscience of the organization, but you have to also understand it's a risk-based organization and that's how they make their money.
Love that. And then Colgate-Palmolive?
Colgate was just one of the best experiences in my career. Firstly, I met my wife there.
Important.
Yeah, we were both graduate trainees. We both got recruited by Colgate. And so my first rotation was with the African Middle East division. She was Central Europe, Russia. And so our paths crossed and started dating, had to disclose our relationship to HR, the head of HR, which was great.
Amazing. Well, so yeah, that's by far the most important thing. You can't have any bigger alert.
100%.
I actually met my wife at work too. So we have something in common there as well, in addition to our longstanding careers in HR. So now you're at IQVIA Labs as the CHRO. I want to know a little bit about the org. It's not maybe a brand that others know, like they might have known those other three. So I'm interested, what drove you into the organization? What excited you about the organization? And then the industry is different than the ones you've been in. So was there a ramp up there, or is HR, no matter where you work?
Yeah, so story goes, I was with the bank 19 years, things going great, really loved the job. I mean, 19 years at a company working around the world, different divisions. I even left HR, I worked in marketing and communications. So I ran marketing or communications for the asset and wealth management business for the internal pieces. And so, I could pick up the phone and I could get something done easily. I mean, I had a lot of organizational currency. So it was a big deal that I left. I got a call from a headhunter. Knew her for a long time. She was always trying to get me out of the bank. And I didn't want to leave. But she said to me, Kevin, I met this amazing partner for you. And I know when the two of you meet, you're going to hit it off and you're going to love it. And I was like, all right, I'll meet the. So I went, did like a Zoom call, whatever with them. And when I started talking to him, Scott Costa Panagos, he's no longer with IQVIA, but he was with Q Squared Solutions was the JV. He said to me, our mission is we treat each sample as if a life depends on it. And I was like, wow, that's so powerful. And I said, so what's your employer value proposition? It's a great mission. He goes, I don't know. Maybe you can help me figure it out. And it was just like bang, 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 and like within 6 months, we put together, a whole plan. He had transitioned to another job and another CEO came in and we worked on it. We developed an EVP based on that. But the story is that for me, it was the mission. We treat each sample as if a life depends on it. A lot of people don't know about the contract research organization industry. I didn't know much about it. I have friends who work in pharmaceuticals, and what we do in the CRO business is we help pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies take their different studies through different stages through clinical trials. So it's a very kind of back room kind of thing, a lot of data, a lot of equipment, a lot of scientists, blinded studies. But what we do is we're helping pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies cure people of rare diseases. What better is that? That was just such a pull factor for me. And so, I just was like, I'm in. And I was very grateful. And it's been multiple acquisitions. We got acquired by the parent company in 2021. Parent company I thought was going to be like another corporate big organization, but it's just the culture's great, innovative people. Just really proud of the work we do there.
I love that. What a great organization. That sounds amazing. It sounds like you've been there through some transformation, through some change, even changes in leadership. Says a lot that you're You're continuing to do what you do and do it at a high level. So I really love that. And I hope people go and do some research and learn a little bit more about the company after hearing what you had to say. You know, we talked a lot about some of the things that we have in common, right? And one of them is that we both love to use AI. We use it in our day-to-day basis. You and I were talking that, everyone has their different models that they're partial to. If I'm being honest, I'm probably I'm open AI, right? I like it came out first. I trust in Sam Altman to build things. I like the integration features. You like Grok. You seem partial to that. So where does that model stand out to you? I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of say, hey, this is why this model makes sense. And then you got to have some examples, personal, professional, how you've been using it.
Yeah, sure, 100%. So just full disclosure, I use Grok in the personal life, and we don't use it where I work. I use it in my personal life. Grok is based on the X AI's platform, and when it first came out, I started using. So I was using ChatGPT, and what I found was when I was using Grok, I was getting kind of deeper insights to things, and it was faster.
Mm.
And I researched it, and I looked at a couple of league tables, and it was because of the server farm they use. They're definitely investing. They have more power, at least from what I've seen. And I think their large language models a little different, a little treated a little differently. And I think sometimes they get into a little bit of trouble, in social media with like things that pop off and it says stuff or whatever. But for what I use it for, I've come to, I don't do Google searches anymore. I tell it what I'm looking for, and it will give me a list of different things to dig into. If I'm experimenting with an idea on something, I'll throw the idea in there, and it'll give me an idea for like a business plan. Or if I'm doing research on something, I've actually told my wife about it. Her daughter was applying to college. And so we say, hey, try Grok with, helping you kind of, put your story together. Don't write the essay for you. Help me tell my story. And what I found is that the difference between the other ones I've used versus the Grok ones, I think that it captured the nuances of the prompting that I was putting in there. Because I used to do them side by side. And I'm sure I still use ChatGPT, or I use Copilot too, because I got Copilot of Microsoft on my personal laptop. So I'll use it for things too. But I just found the quality of what I was getting back from Grok. I also love the audio with Grok. The audio is kind of crazy because you can actually have a discussion with Aura is what the voice module is called. And it's pretty interesting how deep it can go when you're experimenting or role playing. So I did a demo for a colleague just to say, hey, we could use this to, conduct like an investigation. And I just did like a scenario with it. And I asked it to record it, give me the notes and everything. And it was just so detailed.
Wow.
It gave a really nice summary to it. And it was audio. And then it said, would you like me to, summarize it for you and then, put it in a document so you can have it? So this is great. So I think there's so much you can do in work and in your personal life with using that.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great use case. I the other day I was getting ready to do a interview on a large platform, and I didn't really have a good sense of what specific questions I was going to get asked. So I ran through like multiple hours of I had it be the host's name. I went through and had them ask me questions and challenge me and throw me curveballs. Then I would give answers, and it would eventually give me feedback, talking back and forth. And amazingly, it really, really helped me feel confident and prepared and ready for no matter what came my way for that eventual interview. So there's so many great use cases out there. I think what I need to do, not to, no pun intended here with your former company, but I might need to do the Pepsi Taste Challenge and just put all of them together and figure out which one gives me the best nuance, the best details. Sounds like you made a great case for Grok. So
Well, I will also tell you what's fun and you should think about is I attended this conference last year by BetterUp. They're like a kind of coaching platform, and they have a large language model they use. And one of the presentations I attended, they talked about how you can use their model, but other AI models around coaching, personal coaching. So exactly what you said about like kind of like role playing. And they were saying like in the future, which is probably now, if you're doing a pitch, let's say you're a CEO and you got to talk to your board about a difficult topic or you're selling it, you know where your board is. You could tell grok who your board is. They've got the personas. And you could say, hey, they like this, they don't like that. They like this, they don't like that. And then you could say, I want to role play with you, with each of them. And I want to pitch you my idea. And I want you to attack me the way they were attacked. And it will prep you. It will prep you for that pitch or that presentation.
Very similar to what I did, because I wanted because there's tons of information and data out there on people's personas and how they respond to things and how they do that. I mean, who knows? One day it might be just two AIs of each other talking right now to, Kevin and Oz, like running a conversation. We'll get to that level of accuracy, but I hope not, because I enjoy this human connection. I love what we're building here.
Oh, well, let me just say something about that, because there's a lot of fear out there. In one of the topics we're talking about in the industry is ethics, right? So ethics is like the big thing that has to be, which is that the HRPI Human Resource Policy Institute of Questrom School of Business. I was just there for their semi-annual meeting. And one of the things we talked about was AI and ethics, and how ethics is we got to really put those guardrails in place. And it's not about replacing people per se, because what we're seeing in the research is that you're getting task automation, but you're getting job augmentation. So jobs are changing. So you're giving people superpowers, right? So like a lot of the consulting groups now are building agents to work with consultants when you're working on a dimension. So you're actually getting like an assistant. So, I tell people, I'm like, don't be afraid to experiment or play with it, because it's only going to make you better. If you think about, it's going to replace you, you're hiding it, you're not giving your full potential to work with it, you're missing the boat. The other takeaway from that conference I attended with Better Up was they see the world with two different classifications of people now. There are passengers and there are pilots. The pilots are the ones who are engaging and operating with AI, and the passengers are the ones who are going along for the ride. And that gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because the advancements, the better you are at prompting, the more you know about the different tools available to you, the more context you have about your job, because you're always going to need a human to interface. This is all about the human condition, right? It's like, yeah, there's this race for super intelligence and everybody's concerned about it. Countries got to get there faster. And that's the ethics risk, right? But it's like, well, why are we doing this here? It says we're trying to make the world a better place. And if you think about some of we don't want to go too deep here, but a lot of the technology advancements we're going to see are going to be in the quantum space, like quantum computing, for example. They actually sell quantum computers. They're just too big and they're so single task focused that they're not totally commercialized. But I understand Honeywell has a few of them, and so they're using them. So when you start getting into the very difficult, complex calculations, you're going to need super intelligence to run these calculations, to make these advancements in chip technology, or looking for alternative ways to kind of generate, power for computers or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about this all day. This is definitely a topic that comes up on our internal podcasts and these podcasts with our guests. My belief is that there will be some short-term disruption as that skills gap widens and people are figuring out, right, what to do. Much like you had people when the internet first came out that were, I'm just going to keep faxing and mailing things. I'm not sure I'm ready for this. And then eventually you have to conform, you have to learn. So to your point, it's better to be a pilot right now than a passenger, so you can make sure you can ride the wave, not get hit by it, right? And then I really do agree with you that long-term abundance. And I think people forget about technology and really what it does. I don't think that we're going to have a completely different society in 20 years. I bet you a lot of the things that are still problems and issues and things that we care about our parenting or about our teaching or about are all going to be there, right? There are going to be many fundamental changes with the way things work at all levels, government, capitalism, education. There's no question about that. But fundamentally, the human experience will not change, in my opinion. And if anything, I think like any technology like this, there will be downsides that will have to be mitigated for. And the power of this makes it even more important. But I do believe in the collective ability of human beings in general to make that the case. But I think the upside, much like with the internet, is something that we'll look back on and never wanted to have traded. It'll solve diseases. It'll solve for things that we never thought possible. And I think it's an amazing technology. But
Yeah, just one hanging point on that. I was listening to this NPR interview with an author. He wrote this book. Can't remember the guy's name. Colin. Book's called Twist, and they're interviewing him about it. It's about the laying of fiber optic cable across the Atlantic and his adventures of repairing that cable, out at sea and stuff like that. And he made this one comment that really stuck with me because he talks a little bit about technology. He goes, what we're going to realize perhaps 20 years from now are the iPhones are like the cigarettes from like 20 years ago. Like the iPhone's being bad for you than cigarettes. So it's like, to your point around this disruption, it's like we're learning about information and processing, taking information. We have so much I mean, you got so much information in here. You can look up anything. You can be connected to anyone, anywhere around the world instantaneously. And so it's like, how do you moderate and level that so you're not overloading, or are you doing good things with it?
yeah, and listen, we probably won't do a great job of it early, and then over time it'll modulate and moderate, and we'll learn. And there'll be issues down the road. I promise you that. Much like you said with phones now or in social media. I mean, and I want to move on to the next topic. I want to say this. Like, if you think back to 1995, you and I were both around back then, right? And we think about the magnitude of the internet and what it's become. You just made a comment about how we can contact anybody. Here's another way to look at it. All of the world's information is instantaneously in all of our hands for free. Now, if I told you that in 1995, you'd sit back and you'd say, we are going to be a master race of super intelligence, and the whole university system will have fallen down, and everybody will be so super smart, and everything will be completely different and changed. Forget flying cars, floating brains. Look around.
100%.
It's not what's happened. It's the
100%.
human condition still exists. Now, we have that, but it doesn't mean that it impacts and affects. What do they say about technology? There's some quote, I'm going to totally mess it up. It impacts everybody unequally, right? And that will continue to be the case in the future. And so for all of those listening that have any type of worry or doom, make sure you're not part of the unequal. Make sure you're part of the have, not the have-nots. And I think the first thing you do is accept change and adopt change.
Finding the right talent for your team doesn't have to be a struggle. Meet Aon Hire, the world's first hiring experience management platform designed to transform the way you hire. Powered by AI, Aon Hire takes the hassle out of every step in the process. From smart resume analysis to customized interview questions, it saves you time, money, and effort. Plus, with real-time insights from every interview, you can quickly identify top candidates, reduce turnover, and stay on budget. And forget about note-taking, Aon Hire takes care of that for you. Ready to revolutionize your hiring process? Visit aonhire.com and get started today.
Kevin, we got to talk hiring because it's kind of the theme of the
Yeah,
podcast.
of
I'm going
course.
to make sure I get into that. Let's talk about that. Let's start here. What's your core hiring philosophy, either for your own teams or for the organizations that you advise?
Yeah. To me, I like to hire for intellectual curiosity. I think people who ask questions, um, you know, it's people can come prepared for interviews. They could look at the job description, but I want to hear what's on their mind. I want to learn about, how they think. I also look for people who take the initiative. So I think what you find a lot of times is, candidates, people are used to be told what to do. And I think most of my experience across multiple organizations is like the top performers are the ones who ask really good questions and they get started on things. So, I look at those two things with people. From a leadership perspective, I have a different rubric. I look at two things from a leadership perspective. One is I look at style. The other is I look at substance. Because usually with leaders, you have high style, low substance, high substance, low style. And some of that's coachable, which is good. You see it because, you put people through programs, you do the coaching and so forth. It's harder with the substance because that's like, training, it's years of rigor, whatever it is. Style sometimes can be adjusted, but is work that you have to put into it. So I think when you kind of look at leadership and you're assessing leaders, style and substance are two factors that you can look at continually put people into like a 4-box grid.
I get I've done about 170 episodes of this podcast. I've been involved probably in 100,000 plus interviews or 15,000 hires. I don't hear that many original things. I've actually never heard that before with leadership assessment. Style and substance. I really like that. And it really resonates with me because you can have substance, but you'll have all different types of styles in terms of the way that you carry that out, right? If you think about football coaches who are like, defensive masterminds, right? You might have a Bill Belichick who leads a certain way, his style, right? Versus a Pete Carroll who leads a certain way with a different style, right? And so I really love that because that's a different way to look at them in the quadrants and kind of put them up against each other. Great stuff.
We got to credit a former colleague, Jill Connor, for that one because she's the one who taught me about that years ago.
You talked a little bit about intellectual curiosity a little while ago. You talked a little bit about self-motivation. Do you have favorite questions that you like to ask, either about those qualities or just in general that come up in your interviews that you typically ask?
Yeah. So I don't really use it. There's in idle psychology, it was really important. I don't know how prevalent it is today, but we used to use structured interviews with behavioral anchored rating scales. And those were good because you could ensure that you're getting a consistent um, evaluation across the panel of people. So I kind of like to use those still, but I don't weigh it all on that because in the moment when I'm talking to somebody and I'm hearing their story, I like to probe. And that's where I think I try to pick around that intellectual curiosity piece because it's like, what motivates this person? What drives them? What kind of questions are they going to ask? Do they want to learn the business? Some of the feedback I've received in my career, and I think that's helped me to be successful, is people go, well, Kevin, you really want to understand our business or my business. That's because how am I going to create value if I don't know it?
And I think it goes back to what you said about at PepsiCo in particular, right? Where you learn to be a business person early on. And that's not always the case in HR. The best leaders I know in that space are ingrained in the business. I almost, I hear the term HR business partner, I almost laugh because it's like, I really believe everybody that's in HR should be considered a business partner. You should be part of the business. That's how you provide value. And whatever you're doing, whatever your remit is within that organization, is how does that impact the business and how are you helping your customers, your stakeholders, your constituents, right? So spot on. I love that. What about, you mentioned that, you've got a pretty good hit rate, as I like to think, for somebody who's a chief human resources officer and worked with such really great companies. But I know you miss, because I miss too. We all, so when you miss, like, you look back, is there a theme or anything that you had to learn along the way that, you kind of stands out to you?
I'll tell you, let me flip this. I'll tell you what the biggest challenge we have right now in finding people. And I'm talking all companies. How do you find the gems? How do you find, those excellent people that get screened out? And there are so many, and it's kind of like tease this idea of like, doing like a mystery shopper CV or like a tracer where, you got somebody who's really good and you kind of put them in through the system, but you don't tell them, you see if they kind of come out through the other end. I haven't tried that one yet, but I wanted to try that. But I just think there are so many good people that could be a good fit. We just have a hard time getting them through that recruiting call. Whether it's gauging their interest, finding them, and somewhere they fall off during the application process.
That's something I think about all the time. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have in organizations. It's why I built software that's really trying to build more meritocratic hiring and not let our biases get in the way, not let our funnel get in the way. Make sure that everybody that's part of the process is aligned on what success looks like. and being able to look a little bit deeper and have a little bit more nuance while still keeping an expedient process that, has a great candidate value proposition that makes them feel good and excited to want to join your company. Those are all very hard things to thread. It's a very complex and nuanced thing. It is a use case that I think AI has a really big part in as we go forward. And I do think it's something that will dramatically improve, whether it be my software AI or others out there as we go forward. Because I do think that we're coming into a really cool time of innovation. And a lot of these long-standing people problems, these fuzzy things that weren't ones and zeros and are case by case and circumstantial. I do think that this is one of the biggest use cases we'll see out of AI and some of the outcoming technology and just the proliferation of people analytics in general and better understanding things like engagement and motivation and these different things that ultimately make or break whether somebody ends up being a great hire or not. Love that, man. So I want to ask you a couple other questions before we get to our lightning round. So let's start here. Do you have a book? Amiga, you're obviously a pretty well-read guy. Do you have like a book or maybe some content on TV you've seen recently that you'd recommend for our listeners? Maybe a podcast, anything?
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's a traditional book, that management book that I really, really like. I think it's out of production right now, but you can find copies of it. It was produced by Korn Ferry. It's called FYI, For Your Improvement. There may be an updated one. I'm not sure. I've got a couple books left over from, attending leadership courses, but I have them anyway. I always lend them out to people. It's basically like, an old school encyclopedia, but it's clustered by competencies. It what it does is if you, let's say, you're working with a colleague, an executive, whatever it is, and they're struggling with, a behavior, and you can look through this like an index, and you could say, oh, okay, this person has a problem dealing with ambiguity. So there's a chapter on dealing with ambiguity, and it breaks it down into skills. And then it has different levels proficiency. If it could be an overstring, so maybe they're too good at it, they could be great at it, or maybe it's they're unskilled at it. So what it does is it's a language that people can understand, that you can talk to people about, and you can actually take that language and you can feed it back and you can help people change it. So it's really powerful book. And every executive I've ever recommended it to, they love it.
I'm definitely going to check it out. And if it's from Korn Ferry, or the Lominger model that they built is based on some of the tenets of that, because I'm really familiar with that, but I've never heard of that book. So I'm going to pick that up.
I started listening to this podcast from Andrew Huberman. Yeah, man. And his stuff, like I have a cold plunge now at home. I have these. I have a sauna, like an infrared sauna. I follow some of his exercise protocols, and he just has such good experts on his podcast that go into, like, he had this one on sleep, and it was like, just I got some good, so it's got like really good nuggets. And then what he does is he produces a 1-pager of his protocol. So you got like your instructions. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to try cold plunging, and I'm going to see if I see a difference. So yeah, Huberman is just awesome.
Yeah, I don't listen to it religiously, but I've listened to more than, say, 10 to 15 episodes on the specific areas that I was interested in. And I don't have a cold plunge quite yet. I have to make that investment. I do take cold showers in the morning.
12,000 degrees.
And I'm a very big believer in saunas, and try to leverage those as much as
I made my cold plunge, by the way, because I didn't want to spend like $5,000 on it.
So I might need to get the do-it-yourself kit there.
I bought a freezer, and I just had it coated with a spray from the pickup stuff in there. And then I ordered like a temperature moderator, an ozone generator, and then I have an aqua pump from like a pool pump with a filter, home house filter. Ultra light in there.
All right, we're going to print a picture of that in the show notes, okay? People are going to want to take a look at that. That's amazing. All right, what's some advice, last question, what's some advice that you give your 20-year-old self that you didn't know then, but that you know now?
Oh, man. All right, this is good. Relax. Don't take everything so personally. Don't internalize everything. Know that there are things you have control over, and there are things you don't have control over. and hold yourself accountable for the things that you have control over, right? The discipline to do something, taking feedback. May not always be great feedback, but you're going to learn from it. So have an open mind. Don't be so defensive.
Love that. Great advice. There's a lot of younger generations that I could say that should listen to that and adhere to that and realize that with age comes wisdom and comes maturity. So I love that. It's great advice. All right, I want to jump into some speed round here. I want to talk about some of the things that you're passionate about. I'm passionate about smoked meat, so we'll get to that in a second. Let's start here. New York City boy, grew up in, you spent time in Singapore, London, all these cosmopolitan places, but now you enjoy hunting. How did you get into hunting?
Oh, yeah. So I had an uncle in New Jersey who used to go, and I never went with him, but always heard his stories. And, I didn't grow up with friends who did that. So when I moved here, I have a son. He's 14 now. And I developed a relationship with a friend who's an avid hunter. And, I basically said, hey, I'd love to, try it sometime with my son. And he's got a son that he takes too. So he took us going for wild boar, and it was great. We went to a ranch, and he lent us his equipment, and it was a great bonding experience for me and for my son and I. And then we were able to harvest the hog, which is great. And so we use it, put it in the freezer. And the one thing I tell people, because again, from New York, it's like, go hunt. Well, it depends. If you're upstate New York, everybody goes hunting upstate New York. If you're from New York City, it's like, wow, why are you going to do that? But it's like, when you go through all the training, like I'm talking hours of training I had to go through. I had no idea you have to do this stuff because you got to get a license, you got to get all this stuff. And you learn how important the we'll call it the sport of hunting, but you learn how important it is to wildlife preservation, because most of the funds that are generated from purchasing a license to do it or for the training go to wildlife management. And wildlife management is all about protecting the ecosystem.
Have you hunted anything but hog?
I went on a deer hunt. So we went for white-tailed deer in Alabama last year in December, which was a different type of hunting, because the boar hunting we were stalking, which was more, we were like mobile, moving around. The deer hunting was in a stand. It was very cold. You're like, some mornings it's like 35 degrees Fahrenheit. You're in a stand and you're there for hours.
What was your prize catch?
So my son, we had a 10-point buck like right in front of us, and it must have been about 20 feet away from the blind. These blinds are beautiful that this range had, and you have to pop the window open because they can smell you, right? So, and depending on which way the wind is blowing, all this stuff I learned when I went on that trip. So we popped it. As soon as I popped the window, the buck went, made this like loud noise, made it, and ran off, and everything else ran off. And we were like, oh man, and it was like all over. And then I told my son, I said, 20, wait a little bit, 20 minutes, about 130 yards away, an 8-point buck comes out from the side. And then kind of waited. And then I opened up the window and had my son took the shot. It was perfect shot. We're right down. It was just amazing. Just control all that.
Yeah, I have not. I'm not hunted myself, but I have a lot of friends that are super into it. I'm sure I might get out there at some point. Can't be in Florida too long. I'm up in the West Palm Beach area, so you start to see the hunting as you start to go a little bit further north. So who knows? What I do know, barbecue. I know barbecue well. So I love to eat it. I love to smoke some meats. So tell me, what's your weapon of choice when it comes to the barbecue? What do you use?
The green egg. So I've got a propane gas with a searing station that I use, a Napoleon grill. I love it. I used to have a Duquesne, which was all stainless steel. They don't make them anymore. They were bought out by Weber. I think Weber destroyed them because they were so good. It's like just a strong competitor. But I love the green egg, and I found this like an amazing recipe for ribs on the green egg, and it's called the 3-2-1 method. I had no idea. Like I had the first time I was doing it, and you basically you cook the ribs for 3 hours. Obviously you have to you put a base on them. You put binder using yellow mustard, season them, whatever. You put them on there. It was about 200 degrees for 3 hours. Spray a little apple cider, apple vinegar or whatever, and then you take them off. You wrap them in foil for 2 hours. But what you do is I used Mike's hot honey and butter, and I laid it on the foil, and I put them down like the bone side up, wrapped them up nice and tight, put them on there. A couple more spritzers in there for 2 hours. And then when you're done, put them back on for 1 hour, about 300. And then you spray and you put some barbecue sauce on it. So I did that. My neighbors from Georgia, and I got like 4 racks from Costco. So it was like a lot. I've got 4 kids, so we get a decent sized family. And, we couldn't finish them. So I sent over like a rack over to George and his wife, Shirley. And the next day, I knock on the door. Kevin, A+. I said, really? I was like, come on, George, you're pulling my leg here. He's like, no, Shirley said this is some of the best barbecue she's ever had. I was so proud of that moment, getting that from Georgia folks.
Southerner. Yeah. Is that if you win competition, is that what you're doing? You're doing ribs?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so are you beef? Are you baby back? What are we going
baby
for?
back. Look, I'm open to exploring. One of the other cooks I did on there was a prime rib. I did a prime rib on the green egg. I did the turkey once, but I found deep frying the turkey is the way to go.
Getting too close to dinner for this. All right, last question for me. What type of barbecue is your preference? Are we going Carolinas? Are we going KC? Are we going Texas? Are we going something else? What's your top barbecue?
Oh man, I like Texas. I'm a brisket guy.
Brisket guy? Okay. Do you have a favorite brisket place in Texas?
No, shit happened. I had no more like Tex-Mex.
I'll give you a recommendation. You got to go to Franklin's. It's cliche. You wait in line. Great brisket.
There's one in Austin that I went to. It might be
Franklin's is in Austin.
Yeah. Okay, I've been there before. That was outstanding. Yeah.
It's the best I've ever had. My brother lives right there. So we went and waited in line, had a good old brother catching up for a couple hours, and then had some amazing brisket. Kevin, man, most interesting man in the world. We've covered a lot of subjects, brother. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time with me. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Oz. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You got it, my man. Talk to you soon.
You got it.